What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one, I'm going to break down what's going on with Tesla stock and what you should be watching for going forward. I'm also going to talk about what's going on with the overall market and how this may be dictated by the data that's coming out, by talking about SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and many tickers out there. I'm going to break down what's happening with the news affecting Tesla and what the option chain is suggesting for Tesla, as it's looking quite bullish for the next couple of weeks. Before I break anything down about all this information and talk about Tesla's option chain and what's going on with the markets, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Webull link. The offer ends very soon. If you deposit any amount of money, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla, this thing was up about 0.95% for the day, holding up quite nicely. The question is, can Tesla continue to break these major resistance levels? The answer is it's looking very likely like Tesla will do so. And I just wanted to note that for the next couple of weeks, I am anticipating that Tesla is going to reach that $300 level as we approach earnings for the 19th of July, which is about 2 weeks away from now. Now, looking at Tesla, I mean, it's just holding up very nicely. It's still holding up very, very well. And that's despite some of the very hawkish things that many of these Fed speakers have been saying. Many of the people from the Fed have been just continuing to hammer on about how they have to continue to raise rates, a recession is coming, and this and that. And that did cause the market to slow down temporarily, but Tesla held up very nicely compared to the other stocks out there. So there's a good chance Tesla's showing some strength, but I'm going to break down what confirmations are there to look out for before that happens. Now, when it comes to $300, I do think Tesla's going to reach that approaching earnings now, but just to be very safe, right? You always want to watch for confirmation. So I'm going to break down what the confirmation levels are as well and everything like that. But let's first talk about the market, what's happening for tomorrow. Now, for today, when the Fed was, announcing what it is that they had to announce during the minutes release, this caused the market to be very shaky in the beginning. It was kind of sideways to start off, then it became shaky and started dropping. And after that, the market got bought up just pretty quickly. SPY kind of closed kind of red, but Tesla managed to hold up and started to rally after some more bullish news came out. And that just shows how the Fed could still affect the markets. But for the remainder of the week, there's not much else going on with the Fed. 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m., we have the exports and imports data being dropped. And then we have initial jobless claims at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So this is all 1 hour before the market opens. This is going to be the biggest piece of data, or at least one of the biggest pieces of data, alongside the JOLTS data that's coming out later. So after the market opens, it's going to be reacting to initial jobless claims and all this data. Then 15 minutes after the market opens, we have at about 9:45 a.m. the PMI report coming out for the services sector. That's going to be important. Then at 10 o'clock a.m. we have the ISM PMI report and then the JOLTS job openings report also coming out. So all of this data is going to be very, very important. Make sure you watch this carefully. It could cause some volatility during the first 15 minutes and then the first 30 minutes of market open. Be very careful of all of this data. And until then, it may not have a super, super major effect compared to like an FOMC meeting, but it is worth noting because it could cause some shifts here and there. And then other than that, there's not much else coming out in terms of the data side, but we do have earnings coming out for Thursday. We have Levi's approaching earnings after the market closes. And that's about it as far as earnings go for the week. But earnings are going to get very serious over the next couple of weeks when we have like Apple and the big tech coming out. Now, for the entire like FOMC minutes period, what happened with that? Basically, there's more than a 90% chance the Fed's going to give us a 25 basis point rate hike according to the markets right now. The markets are becoming more and more confident of that potentially happening. And they've been hearing Jerome Powell and many of these other Fed speakers consistently saying that. So the current rate's at about 5 to 5.25%, and then the projections around 5.25 to 5.5%. That's the range that the Fed sets for many of these banks and many other institutions. So that's important. And for now, it looks like the market is prepared for what's about to come, and the Fed has remained hawkish. But what did the Fed say that was very important? Let me just close this right up. Basically, the Fed was saying some important things about their future monetary policy, repeating the same things over again. It did affect the market to some degree, but they said other things which have been a little bit more hawkish in their eyes than before. So basically, FOMC, we had Jerome Powell speaking during the initial meeting just a couple of weeks ago. And then during that minutes release, we got more data on paper during the report, and it basically told us that the Fed is open to raising rates more. More members are more open than before as well. They're going to likely project 1 to 2 more rate hikes to come. They mentioned that the overall economy is stronger than what they expected to be at this time around. They expect some pain to come because some of these speakers were talking about how a mild recession is likely on the table, and they continue to remain hawkish moving forward. So, with all of that said, I mean, they became a lot more blunt about the mild recession, and this will have a negative effect on our economy going forward, of course. But for the time being, right now, the market already like saw this coming. This wasn't really a surprise to the markets, and the overall economy is not extremely weak like the Fed was saying. So that's part of why the market's holding up, because with a decent economy, earnings are still holding up, at least on paper. Because earnings are looking this decent so far, the market is not really tanking or doing anything like that for the time being. And we'll have to just wait and see how earnings look over the next couple of weeks. That's going to be very telling going forward. Now, for Tesla, I just wanted to note that this is the reason why Tesla started pumping near the very end of the day, because VW is now in talks about adopting Tesla's EV charging plug. If that's the case, that's going to be bullish news for them because more and more companies are joining in, and they're going to incentivize even more companies to join in, giving Tesla more power and more revenue. The reason why Tesla was kind of shaky in the morning is because Tesla cut prices in Japan for the Model 3 and the Model Y. This has been interpreted in two different ways. Some people could say that this could lead to more sales. Others may say that this may hurt their margins, especially in an area like Japan. This could be kind of mixed up in a way, and that's part of why Tesla was just trading kind of sideways in the morning. Moving forward, when it comes to their overall inventory levels, the Model X has the highest inventory for the time being, but it's still stagnant going forward. Same thing with the Model S, the Model Y, and the Model 3. They have relatively low amounts of inventory, and they're still very stagnant, which tells us that we're not seeing the production overriding this. That means that there's still high demand for Tesla. We're continuing to see more sales, and demand is continuing to remain at a pretty decent place moving forward. That's good for Tesla. That could be optimistic for the future of it, but we're going to see what those margins tell us over the next few weeks when we have earnings on the 19th of June, 2 weeks from now. Tesla had very flat volume, not the best volume for Tesla, only 131 million, just a little bit below average. And that's okay because this was more of a sideways consolidation day for Tesla. But the volume started to kick in at the very end of the day. You could see that in one of the later charts. The short volume for Tesla is still at a little bit of a high place, but it's not that bad because it's not really hurting Tesla that much. Now, looking at the price price ratio, this thing's a little bit hot right now, and that's actually a very good sign for Tesla. The reason why it's hot like this is because Tesla's continuing to hold up despite how SPY was performing. You see, when SPY was kind of like running, for instance, SPY was in the SPX. These things saw some downside when the Fed was like announcing their minutes, when they were saying what they had to say and making big announcements about future policy. You could see how SPY was just being dictated. It came down in the morning, pushed up, got this drop. It dropped about almost $2 all the way down here. That was like a 2 point drop before coming right back up. And then we saw SPX also do something very similar. So we saw a slight drop with the Fed before coming right back up. But despite that, Tesla did not drop that much. Tesla came down a little bit earlier, came right back up, continued to hold up, and then started pumping at the very end, gaining more strength, closing green while the market closed kind of red. Just a little bit in the red, nothing too bad overall. Overall, it's a good sign for Tesla. It's still holding up. Now, the real question is, will it continue to hold these levels? Needham is saying to hold on to your Tesla shares. That's some pretty decent news. Deutsche Bank is saying buy Tesla. Goldman Sachs is pretty neutral on Tesla. Pretty mixed reports. As far as Thursdays goes, Tesla tends to be green about 48% of the time, and we tend to do very well during the fourth hour of the trading day. However, July tends to not be as strong as June historically for Tesla. And in this case, what's going to matter more is going to be earnings. So if earnings are a little bit weak for Tesla, or if Tesla's margins aren't the best or something like that's announced, we could see Tesla end up doing what it historically does, and that is cool down by the later half of July. But if earnings are decent, it could do the opposite and continue to hold up. However, earnings are a couple of weeks away, so I'm not too worried about that for the majority of July. I would say that approaching earnings, Tesla's likely going to pump up anyways, and there's going to be opportunity as we approach the big date. Now, SPY and Tesla both have some resistance levels. Let me just mention that if SPY breaks its resistance, which is currently around the 444 to 445 area, it has a lot of potential to make its way up to 448 because we have very high open interest for the weekly options chain. Very high open interest and decent volume right there. That's going to be a target to watch for at that 448 level on SPY if we get the breakout. But you have to watch for confirmation just to be safe. Let me just note this. For Tesla, This coming Friday, the Friday after, which is going to be, I believe, the 14th, and then the 21st, which would be the Friday after that, we have a very high open interest for the 300 strike for every single one of those weeks. Meaning, a lot of these investors are eyeing this level, and we're starting to see more and more buying pressure for it. There's a good chance we're going to see Tesla reach that level over the next couple of weeks, in my opinion. So, just to be clear, I believe Tesla will most likely hit $300 as we approach earnings, as we approach the 19th. We have 2 weeks until then, so it's not going to go in a straight line. We might see some instances where Tesla's a little red, some days where Tesla's very sideways, but I do believe we're eventually going to make our way up there based off this trend, based off the option chain, and based off how strong Tesla's looking. Because if you look at the 1 hour, look at how Tesla's just on this very strong uptrend, continuing to uptrend, making those higher highs and higher lows. It looks quite nice to me. We have a nice inverse head and shoulder structure too. Looks pretty decent. Now, in the morning, I was warning you guys of some potential possible bearish price action for the entire market, especially for Tesla, because of the FOMC minutes. We did technically get it as SPYs closed red. Apple also closed quite red. The market slowed down a little bit overall, but it wasn't really that bad. It was pretty much just more sideways for the majority of the day. But Tesla managed to hold up and pump at the end, and it held up very, very nicely. That tells us that Tesla has strength compared to the market. Tesla did come down a little bit, but it wasn't that bad. And overall, Tesla's holding up. Now, for that reason, Tesla's gaining more strength, but it hasn't fully gotten the confirmation of the breakout. So if you are a bull on Tesla, you want to see this thing break above 284 to 285. If it breaks that, we're going to likely see Tesla retest the 288 area. That's where we have some resistance. That's the next zone to watch out for up here. And if it breaks 288, we're going to see 290. We're most likely going to go straight to 290 or like much closer to 290 if we break above like 285. And I think there's a good chance Tesla's going to try to retest 285 at least over the next couple of days, if not break it very, very soon. So I do believe it's very likely Tesla's going to do this based off this bullish triangle-like structure, based off the option chain, and based off what we're seeing in the markets and the news becoming more positive about Tesla. Because Tesla absolutely crushed expectations for deliveries, the report that just came out. That tells us that the news is more likely to be positive about Tesla because there's not as much negative things to say about it, at least in my opinion, for the time being. Now, if Tesla were to break down, obviously it's stuck in a range right now, which is between this like kind of close to like 276 to 277 as support, and then the resistance is around this like 284 zone. We're stuck in this range for the time being, but we are testing the upper end of it, and it looks like it wants to break out of it. However, just remember, for the bears, if there are some big bears out there, of course, people are always trying to short Tesla. If the bears want a victory, they need to see Tesla break below 275 and hold below it. If that happens, we're going to see more downside for Tesla. All right, so we're going to be watching this very, very carefully. We're just going to have to wait and see how it goes. But in my opinion, I think the odds favor Tesla most likely retesting 284 to 285 and potentially breaking that very, very soon, as it's getting some good volume now. And it failed to really break to the downside as the buyers came once again to pump this thing up. Tesla had some very strong fundamentals that are backing up this move technically. And on top of that, the options chain is playing a big role as well as Tesla's continuing to be bought up. So Tesla looks very excited as it approaches earnings. And like I said before, I am predicting that as we approach earnings on the 19th, I think Tesla's going to go for at least $300. I think there's a very good chance of that happening over the next 2 weeks. And for tomorrow specifically, I think Tesla's going to likely see a little bit of consolidation, but it's going to be fighting this 284 to 285 resistance. And there's a chance Tesla might try to break above it. There's a good chance it's going to try. It looks more bullish, but just watch for confirmation just to be safe if Tesla actually breaks out. Now for SPY, it's also stuck between support and resistance right, where is it? I think it's like right here. You can see it on the 1 hour time frame quite well. I'm going to go on the 30-minute for more like specific candles. I would say like right here, it's been just chopping back and forth, trading sideways between 444, the entire zone of resistance, and support around 441.5 to 442. Now, if you're bearish on SPY, you need to see it break below 442 in a strong manner and then hold below that and break below 441.5. And then it could turn bearish and retest 440 and potentially lower levels. If you're bullish, you're going to be watching this thing test 444 to 445. If it manages to break that resistance, it has the potential to push up to 446 and potentially 448. I believe the odds would favor it making its way all the way up to 448 over the next couple of trading days if it manages to hold above 445. So watch for confirmation, see if this thing could get a breakout. For now, there's no like really true confirmed direction as it's trading sideways, but it is looking a little bit stronger as we saw SPY hold above the 50 EMA on the 30-minute time frame for the majority of today. So watch this very carefully. We're going to see which way it goes. For Apple, it's very interesting because Apple came down to the support. I think the support was on the 4 hour time frame, I believe, from what I remember. No, it's not the 4 hours, it's the 2 hour time frame. Sorry about that, guys. But on the 2 hour time frame, basically, Apple bounced off the 50 EMA right over there around this 190 area. If you're a bear on Apple, you need to see it break below the 50 on the 2 hour time frame. If it breaks below that, you're going to be watching 188.5, 187.5, then 185 flat. If it manages to hold above this and it actually bounces, which is a real possibility, looking at the options chain and looking at how Apple is continuing to hold this level. If Apple does bounce, depending on the news, depending on initial jobless claims and all the data and etc., we could see Apple try to make its way up to about 192.5 to 192.7. If that breaks, this thing may be on its way for that 194 retest. Then after that could come 196. There's a good chance Apple could try to bounce, but just to be safe, watch and see how it reacts to this support right now and see what happens during the pre-market as well. An interesting runner for the day was Mullen. Excuse me, sorry guys. Mullen was looking pretty good. This thing was holding up very nicely. It has a lot of nice volume, very, very strong looking breakout, and it still is looking strong to me. I could see this thing hit 25 cents very soon if it continues. For the QQQ, this is also trading a little bit sideways. If it breaks below 368, this thing has potential to drop all the way down to lower levels, all the way down to like 365 or below. If this thing manages to break above 372, it could break out a lot higher to about 372.8, then potentially above that. I mean, it could go all the way up to 374 after that, but there's this inverse head and shoulder structure on the 2 hour time frame that's holding up quite nicely. It's trying to break out. There's a good chance it's going to try to retest this high around like 372.8. Could it cool off first because of the data? That is a possibility. Just cooling off a little bit in the pre-market, then trying to push it up again. But you're going to be watching this 372.8 area as resistance because that would be completing this inverse head and shoulders and reaching the resistance zone all the way up there. There's a good chance it's going to happen, but watch for a confirmed breakout above the 372s, and then we could see this thing approach 374s to 375 after that, and even higher levels. For Nvidia, it is a little bit red, but we have a nice inverse head and shoulder structure holding up above resistance. Let's see if this thing could hold above this 420 support right now. If it breaks below this, it's going to come down to 416, then potentially this 409 area. If it breaks down, if it holds above this and starts pushing up, you're going to be watching for 430 to 433. If that breaks, you're going to be watching this thing fly all the way up to 440. What do I think is more likely? I think it may trade sideways for a little bit longer, but eventually there's a good chance it's going to make its way up to 440, looking at this inverse head and shoulders and how well it's holding. But watch for confirmation, see if it can break above 433 first. If it does so, it has a lot of potential for upside. If it fails to do so, watch the 50 EMA as support just to be safe. Microsoft is very sideways. If you want to be bullish, watch it break 340. If not, watch the 50 EMA at 337 as support, then 336, 334 as support, then 333 as support. Watch those levels very carefully. It's very sideways for the time being, but I think there's a good chance it's going to try to get above 340. But we need confirmation for us to turn more bullish. If it breaks 340, watch 342.5, then potentially 345, and then after that comes 350. But watch it just to be safe. We have to be very, very patient. Anyways, when it comes to AMD is most likely going to try to continue to hold these levels as well. We're going to likely see it. It is downtrending quite hard right now around this like 50 EMA. That's what it's trying to test right now. But there's a chance it's going to try to base close to this like 110 zone to 111. That could be the level it's going to be looking out for if it does break below this like 50 EMA. But there's a chance it might try to bounce off that and try to hold it up. We're just going to have to wait and see for confirmation. Just to be safe, guys, if it breaks below the 50 EMA, watch this thing go down to 111, then 109. If it manages to bounce, it's going to make its way up to about 114.36, then potentially the 115 area. And above that comes 117 to 118, which is where we have another imbalance. I am currently in the middle with AMD, but I think there's a chance it's going to try to base soon. It has been dropping pretty hard as of recent, but just to be safe, watch for confirmation for the time being. Netflix looks quite nice in my opinion. It may cool off a little bit as it is trading sideways, at least to some degree, like at least as of like for today and also like the day before. But there's also this nice potential uptrend and nice like cup and handle like formation that could bring this thing all the way back up to about 450 relatively soon. So if it breaks 445, watch 450. If it breaks below, you're going to be watching this 440 level of support. If that fails, watch 436. Sorry about that, guys. Looking at the HYG, this thing is currently on a small downtrend right over here. There's a small divergence compared to SPY for the time being. But if the buyers step in at the support around this like 74 area, then we could try to get a bounce. For the NASDAQ, it's very flat right now. We're going to be seeing which direction it breaks in, so watch that very carefully. Not really giving us much information, but it is holding up nicely. For SPX, if it breaks above 44 4.58. We could see 4.475. If it fails to do so, watch this major support at 44.22. So watch those very carefully. Other than that, the dollar is pretty flat, so is the VIX, not really giving us much information. And last but not least, I mean, Apple is not Apple, Amazon. Sorry about that, guys. Amazon is currently kind of flat. If it breaks below 129, watch the next support at 128. If that fails us, watch 126. If you want to be bullish, watch it break above 131.5. Then it's going to make its way up to 132.5. It's pretty flat right now, so watch it very carefully. And last but not least, for Meta, which is actually one of the best stocks of the day, this thing got a nice breakout above our resistance at 290. So 290 was once again looking quite nice as resistance, and it managed to get a breakout. And if you look at the weekly, I mean, Meta's looking very strong on the weekly. It had this nice gap that formed. So let me show you where the gap is. It's around like the 300s. It's going to likely make its way up to 300 very soon over the next couple of trading days, if not weeks. It's going to try to fill this gap around this like 320 area. So Meta looks really, really nice. A very, very nice play for the time being. And I really like this trend it's on. It looks very bullish. Could it get a back test of 290? It's a possibility, but it's looking less likely. The bears want to see it break below 290. The bulls want to see it break above 300. I think the bulls are going to come out on top over the next couple of trading days, if not weeks. The bulls have the edge on Meta. So the bulls are favoring this market based off the option chain and all these different things, but watch support and resistance on Tesla. I apologize if it sounds like I'm kind of rushing a bit because I recorded this entire video and I just couldn't really upload the video to YouTube. I had a technical issue, but hopefully this one comes out nicely and I want the best for everyone. So watch resistance around Tesla at this 284 to 285 level. Break it, and this thing has the potential to make its way all the way up to 288. Break that, then we can see 290. If it fails to do so, the major support's at 275, which is very far from where we are. A break below that would give the bears the edge, but so far we're not really near that, so the odds favor the bulls right now. All right, so thank you for listening. Have a great day, everyone. Tesla in the market to the moon, as the long term is still incredibly bright, and peace out.